When it comes to the king of lizards in captivity, which is the best one, this or that, there's no more requested video than bearded dragons or leopard geckos. So let's just end this once and for all. What is better, a leopard gecko or a bearded dragon? My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wicked's Wicked Reptiles, stick around. Leopard geckos are a small terrestrial lizard. They come out at night most of the time, crepuscular, and they come from the Middle East. Where bearded dragons are a diurnal species. You'll see them out during the day. They're from Australia, and they're considered semi-arboreal. So let's break it down. 6 categories head-to-head to find out which is your winner, starting with category number 1, size. Really important. Dog, cat, bird, leopard gecko, bearded dragon, how big does anything get? You need to know how big your pet's gonna get. And the nice thing is, neither are huge. There's a big difference though. Leopard geckos are gonna be somewhere between 7 and 10 inches. We're excluding giants here. So we're talking about regular leopard geckos. And with your bearded dragon, 18 to 24 inches is where you're gonna find them most of the time. There are outliers, of course. So it is a pretty big difference. And when you hold on to them, a leopard gecko feels dainty. When you hold on to a bearded dragon, it feels formidable. So it's just quite a big difference. And because of that, you're going to need a much larger enclosure size for bearded dragons. Which brings us to category number 2, enclosure size. Well, I think I just kind of covered it. I mean, bearded dragons need a bigger space. They're a bigger animal. Leopard geckos, you can get away with a 20-gallon enclosure or a 28-quart enclosure, depending on how you want to do it, with not a lot of height. A bearded dragon, you're going to want 2 feet of height, where with a leopard gecko, you can get away with 7 inches if you want to keep them in a tub, which is an option for leopard geckos, where it's not for bearded dragons. So just to cut to the chase, 20 gallons is what I think is a minimum size for a full-grown leopard gecko. You'll hear 10 gallons all the time. I personally have done this. I don't agree with it. I think that Cheech looked, he needs more space, in my opinion. And this is a rather large leopard gecko, as big as they come if they're not giants. He lives in a 28-quart container, and we're gonna put him into one of these 20-gallon front-opening exoterras once we move to the new reptile room. Hit subscribe if you wanna see something really cool. We're building a reptile room from scratch. Anyway, back to the list. And leopard geckos, in my opinion, 2x2x4. 2x4x2, 4x2x2. Either way, 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet tall, 120 gallons or equivalent, where the leopard gecko, 20 gallons. Big difference. So who wins this one? In my opinion, it's gotta be the leopard gecko. Smaller space, easier to control. Just all in all, it is just easier to house a leopard gecko than a bearded dragon. So after 2 categories, that leaves us with the bearded dragon lagging behind 2-1 for the leopard gecko. Number 3, heat, humidity, and lighting. And we can kind of all clump them together. The big difference is leopard geckos don't need a UVB light. You can give it to them. It, can be good for them, but they don't need it. They'll live a perfectly healthy life without it. Cheech here, he's been living without a UVB light for 11 years. He's just fine. He's as big as they come, producing lots of fertile offspring. You're fine. Bearded dragons cannot live without a UVB light. You will kill them slowly and painfully. It is torture. They will get what's called MBD, metabolic bone disease. They will eventually die from this, or at least be very, very, I guess, paralyzed in some cases, but at least have a disability, to say the least. So the lighting, bearded dragons need UVB, and leopard geckos don't. But the other big difference with lighting and heat is bearded dragons need a heat source from above. Leopard geckos can have a heat source from beneath. You can use a heat mat if you choose, or you can use an above the head, over the head heat source from above. It's up to you. But with leopard geckos, you don't need a basking bulb. With bearded dragons, you do. So the lighting and the heating, and especially because bearded dragons need a much hotter hotspot, they need a bigger basking area, they need a hotter area overall. It's a little bit more difficult, and because humidity is kind of a wash, it's basically the same, like very similar anyway. This one, again, has to go to the leopard geckos, which means 3-1 for the leopard gecko. I just want to take a break and get a real reptile doctor's opinion on this. What is it, Dr. Fexneck, about leopard geckos that make them so amazing, and why do you think they're going to win the list? They're cute. Okay. Category 4 is diet, and this is important. If you feed your animals, they tend to live a lot longer, and don't look so skinny. It's just better overall. And the nice thing is neither has ridiculous requirements or is super expensive. Leopard geckos, they're insectivores. They're going to eat crickets, dubia roaches, superworms, mealworms, and that's it. And for the most part, there's exceptions. They're not picky. Bearded dragons are. Bearded dragons are picky sometimes. So although they're going to eat things like insects and also vegetables and a little bit of fruit, so things like endive, Swiss chard, collard green, mustard green, things like that, it's a lot easier to feed the leopard gecko because they're not going to be as picky. There's less to feed. You don't have to make salads, for example. And it's a lot cheaper that way as well. If you're someone who can tolerate the chirping of crickets, have a bin of them, so you only buy them once a month. They're in a bin, you scoop them out, and you have, I don't know, superworms in a container, or if you get a fridge, you can have a container of mealworms. They'll last for like 2 months in the fridge. It's just so easy. Where these guys, you'll have to have a garden or go to the supermarket at least once a week to get fresh produce. Very clear and easy win. 4 for the leopard gecko and only 1 for the bearded dragon. Category number 5, and one of the most important things for most people, is behavior. Because if you have a boring animal, you don't want to keep that animal. The nice thing is, I think personally, both are awesome. Leopard geckos are fun, but they don't move around as much. They're not as inquisitive. Bearded dragons will chase after their food. Bearded dragons are absolutely awesome. Now, Diamond it's kind of cold in this room, so he's not really moving around. But if we were in the sun, he'd be looking around, and there'd be flies buzzing around, he'd be trying to catch them. Leopard geckos are cool, but bearded dragons, in my opinion, there is no way I could even come close to tying this or giving it to the leopard gecko. Bearded dragons are so much more fun. They have much more personality, in my opinion. I love these guys. This is a very clear win. 2 points for the bearded dragons and still 4 for the leopard geckos. Moving on to our last category, price, availability, and morph. And this is important because if you can't get one, you can't get something that you like looking at, or you can't afford it, these videos are, well, they're useless to you. The nice thing is, they're both availability and their affordability are very simple between the two. The big difference is morphs, right? So let's talk about price and availability. Every expo table or every reptile shop, you're going to be able to find them. They're very easy to find either one. Neither of them are expensive. Leopard geckos a little bit cheaper for most morphs. But let's get into that. Leopard geckos have way more morphs. There's 3 different types of albino. There's a whole bunch of different types of codominant genes and recessive genes. There's so much. Bearded dragons are more limited and more expensive, and there are some morphs of bearded dragons, such as silkbacks, that I do not agree with. And there's a video here talking about controversial morphs and things if you want to watch. I just think that it's a little bit easier to find for most of the time. They're easier to house. Just in general, this is a leopard gecko category again. Just the price, the availability, and the morphs. It's 5-2. Sorry, Diamond, you lose, buddy. So there you go. Those are the comparisons between the two. What do you think? Do you agree with it? Should there be more categories? Which ones would you have swapped? And I got this idea in the comments section, like all of them. If you want one of your ideas to become a WWR video on a Monday or a Thursday, throw it in the comments section. I get all the ideas from there. And of course, the most special thank you to the people who get to watch these videos early, the Patreon supporters. You guys are fantastic. You guys are holding strong. I love making extra content, throwing up behind the scenes footage, putting out these videos early for you guys. So if you want to be part of that for $1 a month, as little as $1 a month, you can see extra stuff, early stuff. I plugged everything now. Hit subscribe. See you on Thursday.